Hello and welcome to the latest edition of the Psych Tech at Work podcast. I am your host, Dr. Charles Handler, and boy howdy do we have a special guest for you all today. You are going to love this. Our guest, my guest, your guest, is none other than the Commissioner of the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. That is right, Commissioner Keith Sonderling. And during our discussion today, we're going to cover all kinds of hot topics, all kinds of things that relate to the ins and outs of how people are going to hire today and in the future, right? In the age of AI, are things more complicated? Absolutely. Are the core ideas of what it takes to hire ethically and responsibly any different? I don't know. You be the judge. In my opinion, and maybe in Commissioner Sonderling's opinion too, it all boils down to some really simple principles, which we'll talk about today. At the same time, you're going to hear straight from the horse's mouth what we can expect from the federal government in terms of new laws, rules, regulations, policies, all that good stuff. We'll also talk about the impact of things like the EUAI Act at the global level, and even things like the New York City law at the local level. That's right. What we're going through now is a groundswell of thought, consideration, and careful deliberation about what it's going to take to make sure that hiring is ethical, responsible, and happy for everybody involved, right? It's a tall order.
I think it was a really interesting point you just made, is that these systems scale, right? A big piece of this is scale. So if you train a system that has bias, it's going to scale that bias, over and over and bigger and amplify it. So we kind of got to cut it off at the root,
And there's a lot of different ways to look at that. And you brought up a really good point. And so much of, I don't want to say the analysis or the distraction in these AI tools is, looking at this data set discrimination. And what does data set discrimination mean in terms that you don't need to be a computer scientist to understand? What is that for HR professionals? And, kind of simplifying that, well, what is the data? It's your applicant flow. It's your, where you put your job boards. And then, who applied for the job, or, a lot of these tools analyze your existing workforce, your current workforce. And, the simplistic examples of that are, okay, so if your applicant pool is made up of one race, one gender, one national origin, the computers may think that that is the most telling sign of what an ideal candidate is. And obviously it's a lot more sophisticated than that. But you brought up just now a really interesting point, that it's a lot more than that, right? And how that individual bias can be injected into not only that data set, but also how it's analyzed and how it's run. And I think that's sort of the fear of all this, and not just having your data set properly and making sure that you've done what you're required to do, whether you're a federal contractor or just in EEO, policies regarding hiring and advertising, but also, access to these systems. And if you have somebody who has access to the systems in HR, hiring manager or otherwise, that now has more access to data than ever before and can inject their own bias into systems, and the systems be able to recognize that, you can eliminate individuals who are qualified from the applicant pool based upon their race, sex, national origin, religion, etc., with a few clicks. And as you know, when things were on paper, it took a long time to discriminate. So you have a hiring manager who wants to look at physical resumes, and you want to look for, you don't want to hire any women for the job. You have to look for female sounding names. You have to look for characteristics associated with being a female with your eyes, and saying, okay, male or female, trash. Oh, this is a close call. Let me look longer. It takes a lot of time, right? But these systems are so sophisticated, whether directly or adjacent characteristics, to be able to pick up that. And with a few clicks, it could be catastrophic to an organization of injecting bias in there. So that goes to the broader conversation about how it's just so much needs to go into properly designing these tools from the vendors, carefully using it from the employer's perspective. And that's what people are trying to figure out now. And I think that's where a lot of people have different roles in, whether it's lawyers, whether it's IO psychologists. We need to create that sort of universe of who's involved in actually making sure that these tools are not only doing what they're saying they're going to do, but also legally compliant and also, ethically compliant within the confines of your organization. And that is what I'm trying to figure out. And it is very
Yeah.
complicated.
It's the Gordian knot, if you will, but hopefully we can conquer it. So something that you were saying there, and a thought that I've had, and I've expressed it a lot, but I can't keep saying it enough, and I'm very interested in your take too. I feel like hiring is a game of probability. You can't hire a plaid person if they're not in your funnel, right? It just doesn't happen. So if there's misrepresentation going into the funnel, it's going to be harder to have something equal, come out the bottom. And I feel like maybe the great Satan, I would say, in a lot of the stuff we deal with is who even sees a job ad. The algorithmic placement of a job ad. If I'm, an African American female IT professional or developer, and whatever algorithm doesn't even show me a job opening potentially, I can't apply for that job. I've already been discriminated against. And then you have these recommendation engines, right? Even before someone is a candidate, a recruiter or a sourcer may say, oh yeah, thumbs up on this person, thumbs down on this person. That trains the system as to what you want. And if there's bias there, even before someone's a candidate, you're ejecting people that don't fit. And you're reaping the issues with that when you're trying to be compliant with everything else. Can we stop that?
And you're liable for it. And that's the thing, as you know, as some people don't know, federally, job applications are federally protected. I mean, job descriptions, advertisements are all federally protected. Before we get to the content of what's in those, where there's generally a lot of issues, but to your point on the advertising side. And I think this is where we saw some of the issues very on. And especially the way big tech companies are designed, especially the way they make a lot of money is through advertisement and through placements and having what's called, these micro-targeted ads, and to show you based upon your demographics, based upon all your protected characteristics of, hey, we want to show you this product because you're likely to buy it. And look, in the advertising, selling shoes or selling electronics, that's completely illegal. I mean, that's completely legal.
Yeah.
And that's how they make a lot of money. But in the employment context, it's completely different in that sense. So, if you're going to say that I want to only show this job advertisement to this group of people based upon all this demographic information I have from these tech companies now, right? You are, like I say, going even further than pre-civil rights era discrimination, because at least before technology, if you saw job advertisements, and there's some crazy examples from the pre-1960s civil rights job saying, no women of childbearing years apply.
Yeah.